So a few weeks back, I put up on my Instagram story a little competition to see who you guys wanted to see most in a tutorial video. Sort of staged a bit of a voting tournament. The winner of this tournament was Virtual Riot. I'd like to thank you guys for voting for the absolute hardest artist to recreate. So I'm going for the classic style. The man has done so many different types of music. To fit it all into one video is just impossible. So I got my energy drink in hand. We'll make a energy drink style Virtual Riot song. So obviously we're at 125 BPM, house sort of music sort of style. So we'll start in the intro. Firstly, we have this Virtual Riot atmospheric sample. You know how much I love atmospheric samples, and Virtual Riot has made some really nice ones, so it'd be rude not to throw one of those in there. I also had this little Virtual Riot impact. You're going to be noticing that I have used quite a few Virtual Riot samples in this project, and it's just because Virtual Riot makes good sample packs. So go over and abuse Splice and just fill your projects with Virtual Riot samples. The next step was to lay down some chords to sort of set a bit of a tone for the song, I guess. I'm going for that video gamey sort of vibe, so the chords aren't too emotional, they're more like energetic, I would describe them as. All I'm using for the sound is a little serum preset. The envelope sort of just opens up a little bit, letting the high frequencies ring through. Also, I have this little plucky sound. This is being made with the chords. I'm just using another serum preset here, using the little arpeggiator trick down here in the wrench tool setting. So you just go there and set it to up, and I've got it set to 1, and that makes these chords sound like an arpeggiator. These intro plucks go all the way up into the build up, and I use a filter cutoff, open that up so the high frequencies come through. As we move along through this intro sort of section, you can see a bit more happening. I introduce an intro bass. I have this really simple intro bass sound, and this is literally just like my normal saw basses, except on this one I've dropped the low sounding bass. The low sounding bass is detuned with 11 unisons, but then oscillator B has like a higher pitched saw wave on there, and that's just one voice, so it sort of just contrasts each other and it gives it that video gamey sort of sound, I guess. And then the last element of this intro section is just a reverb tail from my chords, which we'll get into for the build up section. So now we move into a build up section. I'm obviously keeping my atmosphere and my intro chords, intro bass and intro plucks. I'm not really introducing a whole lot more. So I'm transitioning to this build up with another VR impact. I have some claps in there. I also have this big chord stack playing the chord progression in a sort of like housey, big, hyper, whatever you want to call it sort of way. The makeup of these chords is just 3 layers, and I'm going to use those again in my actual drop. So yeah, they're just playing a simple little pattern, sort of simple little rhythm thing. I have some big beefy rises in there as always. I'm also filtering in a few dubstep basses that I'm going to use in the drop. This is, I guess, just teasing what the drop has. It's making it so the drop isn't such a shock to the listener. Right at the end of this build up, I have this little glitch 2 automation. Now this is just a tape stop slowing down at 2 beats. I've set the tape stop to affect all these major elements. We do that typical housey sort of old style EDM thing where you just go wow, you know, so everything like slows down and stops, and it gives room for this little fill section.
Make a bass sound from scratch.
The man himself
Make a bass sound from scratch.
saying we'll make a bass sound from scratch. This little VR bass glitch thing, and a short sweep.
Make a bass sound from scratch.
Oh yeah, the last thing I forgot to mention was right at the end we cut the claps and we replace them with kicks.
Make a bass sound from scratch.
Alright, let's get into this Virtual Riot energy drink sort of style drop. A good place to start is just the drum beat. If you've made house tracks before, it's just simple, 4 on the floor, boots and cats type beat. Also, I'd just like to add some rides for a bit of top end stereo width sort of source. So now we're trying to create a sort of glitchy, multiple different sounds sort of drop. I don't know how to explain it any better than that, but that's what we're trying to do. So the idea I had was just like, wow, wop 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 wop, wow, chut chut, bum 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 bum. What I have is this bass growl, which goes into what I call a fill bass, and then into a wop 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 wop. So I'll break down those basses first. So on this bass growl, pretty easy to make. So you want to get like a monster or just any sort of weird wavetable. You want to have a few voices on the unison. You want to up the detune, and then you want to pull this random phase all the way down. So when you play this sound with the random up, it's sort of just like a rhythm bass, just pulsing. When you pull it down to 0%, it sort of has that like high pitch, like pew sound. A few LFOs moving the wavetables around. Wow, this is doing absolutely nothing. And then just a high filter, just womping the low end of it. On the effects, it's just a distortion. Post-processing, sausage fattener, OTT, cutting some lows so I can make way for the sub. The next sound is this fill bass sound. You just get yourself a wavetable, Monster 6, cool as. And then I just chucked some LFOs on the wavetable, moving it around. You can see that this one's set to like go up and then there. Real random stuff really. And then I have a high pass 12 on there. That's just moving the filter around. LFO 2, again, just moving different bits around. Like when I'm making a bass, it's just sort of trial and error, sort of. You never know what you're gonna get. Like a box of chocolates. On the post-processing of this, I just have some hyperdimension, some phaser, some distortion, compressor. Our third bass is this wop 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 sound. So yeah, this is just a real simple like rhythm bass sound. Got FM from B in there, wavetable, automating a bit of noise, moving the level, obviously going 1/16, so we're going real fast, and yeah, just womping with the high 12 filter. On the effects of that, a filter, all passes, hyperdimension being automated up, some flanger, distortion and phaser, organized chaos. Yeah, then we just have 3 different basses that we can just flick between whenever we want, and simple as that. Virtual Riot, he switches between like bass sounds and like big heavy chord stacks. what I've done here is just made some like chord patterns, cool chord things. I've also got some tape stop on there. It's just sort of changed up what the chords are doing. So over here we have a sort of different sound. Basically we can just try out like different patterns and different chord progressions to just make sort of different effects and keep it interesting. At the end of the first section of the drop we go like this with a combination of bass growls, chords, and this little gamer arp. So this gamer arp, I chucked a chord in there. It's just a little square wave utilizing the arpeggiator. I do use my sub bass in the separate channel just to keep it clean from everything else. So I like to separate it. Obviously that's going to be playing the G to go with the basses, and then we could have like F, G, A sharp, G to go with the chords. In the second half of the drop I just wanted to create a bit of variation, so I just took my chords, took my bass, gamer arp, and just switch them around. As simple as that, and it just creates a whole different beast. In terms of extras, I just sort of had some risers and uplifters in there. So yeah, I hope you guys took something away from this tutorial. It was definitely a challenge. I know there are so many different versions of Virtual Riot I could have tackled, but this one seemed the coolest to me because this is sort of my introduction to Virtual Riot. So, do you want to say anything, bud? Hope you guys enjoyed. Here's the final result. See you in the next one, I guess. Pew, 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 pew.
Make a bass sound from scratch. Make a bass sound from scratch.